Pentagon secret. The Anunnaki are returning. What did I just say? I said that the United States Pentagon has a secret. The Anunnaki from Planet X or Nibiru are returning soon. The Pentagon knows that the Anunnaki has ties to Comet Sison and Inc. With two well-known celestial objects on the horizon, one must question why the Comet Sison and Inc were given those particular names. The word on is associated with the word an, pronounced on, as in Anunnaki, and one of their leaders, Anu, Anu. The prefix for Ison would be as in Isis, who is the same character in folklore as in Anu and the Sumerian goddess, Ishtar. So, if you separate the word Ison to become is plus on, you get Ishtar, of the Anunnaki. Comet Inc is much more obvious to those who have studied the Anunnaki. Inki, as in Comet Inc, was a Sumerian god who was later referred to as Ea, as in why our planet is called Earth. Inki was the deity of crafts, mischief, water, seawater, lake water, intelligence and creation. Western sky UFO equals Anunnaki. Many people are looking toward the western skies at an anomaly we can only call a UFO, as there are no major stars or planets in this particular area of the sky, according to the cell phone app, SKI or Stellarium. Some believe this UFO may possibly be a Pleiadian or Arcturian ship, but it is also possible that it might be the return of the Anunnaki. As evidence from many reports and videos from all around the globe, this UFO changes color and size. Various sacred geometry shapes can be detected from this UFO and the colors will change intermittently. If this UFO is the Anunnaki, expect all governments to ensure that a new star will be placed on SKI and Stellarium applications to cover up the fact that we are not alone in this galaxy or universe. For some people, this will be too much for them to swallow. Others will deny what is happening, but for those who have the capability to look outside the box, all possibilities exist without fear or apprehension. Governments rarely tell us the truth and cover their trails with the excuses of the information being confidential or a security risk, so it is quite possible that most governments know about the return of the Anunnaki, yet fear telling the people because it would collapse their economic slave systems and world religions as we know them. A thought to ponder comes from the Christian Bible, King James Version. In Genesis 1:26, it states, "And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." One must question why it says let us make man in our image. If there was one God, then should it read, "And God said, Let me make man in my own image"? Is it possible that the Bible was written by the Anunnaki and designed to control man through fear? After all, religion equals subservience, control and conformity, which is the same template as every government. For the record, the King James Version of the Bible was edited by Sir Francis Bacon, who was a 33rd-degree Freemason. At this level of Freemasonry, there is a motto of Odo Abjah, which means order out of chaos. The Bible ends in chaos with a chapter called Revelation. What about the Sumerian tablets that state that we were created as gold slaves? In the Sumerian tale, Enki disobeyed his father, Anu, and loved the human creations. Enki and Anu have been at war ever since this betrayal. Anu was one of the creator gods who manipulated our DNA to make us slave workers who would mine the gold on this planet for the Anunnaki. This is most likely the reason why the Roman Catholic Church is in possession of so much gold. According to one source, it is estimated that the RCC owns 60,350 metric tons of gold. If you look at the pyramid on the back of the US dollar, you will see an all-seeing eye. Is it possible that the entity, or entities, at the top of the pyramid are the Anunnaki and have kept us as economic slaves for thousands of years? Regardless of how this plays out, people are awakening to the tyranny and oppression of all governments and are realizing that our current ways of life are unsustainable through fiat currency and our current economic slave system. In total, there may be several thousand world leaders who are keeping us all in economic slavery while knowingly polluting our water, air and food supplies. The mainstream media continues to play the fear card as well as crank out as much state-sponsored propaganda as possible. We can all rise above this, and it could literally happen overnight, but first, the bottom of the pyramid, all of us, must unite. We can no longer tolerate the hatred of other countries, ethnicities or races, because this is what keeps us from advancing as a civilization. The Hopi believe that we are the ones we have been waiting for. In other words, we have the power to change things right now, without help from the Anunnaki or any other possible benevolent extraterrestrial race. But first, we must unite as a global community. Evidence for a distant giant planet in the solar system. Recent analyses have shown that distant orbits within the scattered disk population of the Kuiper belt exhibit an unexpected clustering in their respective arguments of perihelion. While several hypotheses have been put forward to explain this alignment, to date, a theoretical model that can successfully account for the observations remains elusive. In this work we show that the orbits of distant Kuiper belt objects, KBOs, cluster not only in argument of perihelion, but also in physical space. We demonstrate that the perihelion positions and orbital planes of the objects are tightly confined, and that such a clustering has only a probability of 0.007% to be due to chance, thus requiring a dynamical origin. We find that the observed orbital alignment can be maintained by a distant eccentric planet with mass greater than 10 meters whose orbit lies in approximately the same plane as those of the distant KBOs, but whose perihelion is 180 degrees away from the perihelia of the minor bodies. In addition to accounting for the observed orbital alignment, the existence of such a planet naturally explains the presence of high perihelion Sedna-like objects, as well as the known collection of high semi-major axis objects with inclinations between 60 degrees and 150 degrees whose origin was previously unclear. Continued analysis of both distant and highly inclined outer solar system objects provides the opportunity for testing our hypothesis as well as further constraining the orbital elements and mass of the distant planet. The Anunnaki are due to return to the Earth to fix what they had messed up, our junk DNA, in order to fast-track a spiritual awakening and evolution in human consciousness. Junk DNA, as it's called by modern science, contains dormant genetics that separate us from being little gods. According to the research of Greg Braden, we only have 20 of the 64 codons in our DNA turned on. One must ask, why would Creator, Source limit our genetic capabilities by turning off most of our DNA? Hypothetically, if we can figure out how to turn on the latent codons in our DNA, we could feasibly do anything, such as heal every person on the planet instantaneously, as well as healing Mother Earth, herself, from the poisoning of our water, air, and food supplies. Robert Morningsky gives one of the best explanations of how our DNA evolved. Our DNA was limited by the Anunnaki in order to keep us living in subservience, control, and conformity to our Anunnaki overlords. These overlords are known as Enki and Enlil, the sons of Anu. Enlil is Lord of the Word, and all religions are based on honoring him as such. In biblical terms, he is referred to as Lord or God, but he is not anywhere near being Creator, Source. The Anunnaki is referred to in the Bible where it says, "Let us make man in our own image." These are the gods that religious people worship and are in no way associated with Creator, Source. Enki is known as Lord of Creation and is the one who is responsible for limiting our DNA in order for us to worship the Anunnaki as gods. He ended up falling in love with his creation and commingled with us, which gave us the Anunnaki DNA as well. Because the codons in our DNA were limited, the Anunnaki DNA also lies dormant in our DNA. At this point, Enki's creation, humanity, had no passion or consciousness. The gift of the feather according to Morningsky. Enki was approached from a being from another galaxy outside of the system. These particular beings, in their evolution, left the need for their own physical bodies and learned to use internal energy to climb a mountain. They didn't need a rope. They didn't need a ship. They were able to use their own energy. As they used more and more internal energy, they needed less density. So, these beings from another galaxy were able to generate an evolutionary formula and plugged in a humanoid bird. As they evolved, these beings lost their density. They lost their need for a physical body, but they liked bonking. For courtship purposes, they retained their wings. But in the dark, there's no sunlight. The energy beings glowed. They came to Prince EA and said, "Do you really want to give them independence? Do you really want to give them free will? I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you one of our own strands of DNA. If you hardwire it into the beast, you're going to condemn him to passion, to inexplicable fire." Prince EA said, in a second, and he took the DNA and went to the beast and hardwired it into the beasts. Suddenly he, the beast, was linked to another race in another galaxy. Suddenly, he was aware. He was conscious. These beings were called Aku. The gift that was given to Prince EA, that was placed inside of the beast, was known as the gift of the feather. When we look at the so-called royal bloodlines, we are most likely looking at DNA that does not have passion of consciousness, nor does it contain the Aku DNA, the gift of the feather. In other words, those who have been controlling us for millennia know that the true genetic royalty on this planet are those who are not within their bloodlines. In order to remain in control, they rule through fear, because once our DNA is awakened, we become much more powerful than our perceived controllers, world leaders, royalty, etc. According to Simon Parkes, we have 12 strands of DNA and each strand is related to a specific galactic race. With such a rich galactic lineage, it's no wonder that our DNA is the true genetic royalty of the universe, and why so many galactic neighbors have a vested interest in our planet's population and DNA. As above, so below. Everything that occurs on our planet is a microcosm of what is happening outside of our planet. Because of the dysfunctional hierarchy involved in the Orion Wars and the ultimate fight for resources, Earth, we can see the same reflection here on this planet, as various countries are constantly fighting for resources without any regard for humanity's best interests. The story we've been told is that the Anunnaki is a battle for control and power between two brothers, Enlil and Enki. In reality, this is no different than political parties where you have the left wing and right wing. Republicans and Democrats. It's always the same crap from a different toilet, while the shadow government controls everything in secrecy. An easy way of looking at this is through any given government where you have your leader and a shadow government who is pulling the strings of that particular government's leader. The same can be seen in the Vatican, where you have the secret Black Pope pulling the strings of the elected Pope. In the case of the Anunnaki, the Republicans and Democrats are Enki and Enlil, while the shadow government is their father, Anu, who secretly is pulling all of their strings. In an interview with Freeman Fly, Robert Stanley believes that Enki was passed over for kingship to the Orion, Sirius Empire because he is mentally unstable. You can't put somebody who's insane in charge of an empire. If you know someone is crazy, you don't put him in charge of a country, let alone a galactic empire. Yet this is what is being reflected here on Earth with the divine right to rule over fellow human beings. Our Earth DNA also contains the DNA of Enki's mother. Our DNA could be reactivated at any time, and Luciferian Enki's people know this and they fear it, so they've been trying to accelerate their negative timeline. Creator, Source has demanded that the Anunnaki must return to fix what they had messed up, mainly our DNA. Stanley added, when they say they're coming back, they've been gradually infiltrating and doing what they can covertly. And that's one of the reasons why both the good guys and the bad guys remain behind the scenes. Because they don't want to spoil the show. Approximately only 4% of our universe is of negative polarity, and this can be resolved by unlocking our DNA, which will allow us to see that which has been hidden from us for millennia and will give us the abilities that are inherent to our genetics. This will make us more genetically abundant than the Anunnaki, and all of our world leaders who claim to be of the royal bloodlines. The truth that the ruling elite do not want you to know is that it's not their bloodline that is superior, but ours. When our DNA is activated, everything will become transparent and the truth will no longer be hidden. Your latent abilities, such as telepathy, bilocation, manifestation, etc. will become commonplace and there will no longer be a need for money, government, or religion. This falls in conjunction with Pluto entering Capricorn in 2008 and staying there until 2023. Pluto is known as the destroyer and will tear down everything that is not in humanity's best interests. We're already seeing the collapse of money, government, and religion along with revolutions all around the planet. Is it possible that Pluto in Capricorn is the timetable that the Anunnaki are working with in order to restore our DNA by 2023? A vision of what is to come. I recently had a vision of how this is all going to unfold. In this vision, I saw a huge flash of light surrounding me. It happens in the literal blink of the eye. Once you feel and see this light, your DNA will be healed instantaneously. You will have many new and exciting abilities. You'll also know the truth about how we've been enslaved for